I don't want you to sorrow as others which have no hope. For if ye believe that Jesus died and rose again,
yes, sir,
even so them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him. That's what I like about sleeping in Jesus, is that it's not an eternal sleep. It's just a rest,
yes, sir,
until he comes to awaken me.
Yes, sir.
So because of the fact that death is just sleep from which I'm going to be awakened, then death is no longer a threat to me. Because when I leave here, I'm going somewhere where Jesus is. And when the time has come, he's going to rise me up so I can go home and live with him forever. As I prepare to show you one more thing, I think the reason why we ought to always remember the resurrection is because when we're raised to life again, we will have a brand new body. You're looking a little funny there. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 helps us to understand that when we are raised from the dead, when we are awakened from our sleep, you won't see me in the same old suit I'm wearing now.
All right.
I'm going to have a body that will not be suit worthy. I'm going to have a different kind of body.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to have to be fitted for no garments.
Right.
I'm going to have a new body. I'm going to have a brand new house that I can live in. And that ought to be good news to somebody. Ought to be good news to somebody here who's having trouble with their current house. See, that's the blessing of believing in the resurrection, is that this old house I'm living in now, I don't have to stay in this house. When the Lord comes back, I'm going to have a different body. Even Paul had to explain this process to the Corinthians, because at verse number 35 he said, but some man will say, how are the dead raised up, and with what body do they come? Paul calls the man a fool, because you have to understand that which you sow, when the reaping happens, something has to die. In other words, when I sow a mustard seed, that mustard seed has to die and give up its form and its shape for the mustard plant or tree to emerge forth from the ground. And that's what Paul is telling us here, that what we are sowing in this body is not the same as what we're going to reap in the next body. That's the reason you can't spend all your time worrying about how you look in this body. The enemy has been successful in getting us to be so concerned with the vain things of life that we forget about the fact that this is just an old house that I live in. Notice Paul says that in verse number 37, that which thou sowest not that body that shall be. I'm working and exercising and doing what I need to do for this physical body. But Paul is reminding them not to forget about that spiritual body. I need to work on the inner man. I need to make sure that while I'm I'm dressing up the outside, that I get the inside together. Because it's the inside man that's going to last forever. The Bible says in verse number 38 that God giveth it a body as it has pleased him, and to every seed his own body. When you look at what John said about it in 1 John chapter 3, beginning at verse number 1, listen to what John says in 1 John chapter 3 and beginning at verse number 1. John said, behold, what manner of love the Father hath bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Therefore the world knoweth us not, because it knew him not. He said, beloved, now we are the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Even John said it has not been revealed the exact way that we're going to look once we exit this body. But we do have the assurance that we shall look like him. I don't know about you this morning, but that's good enough for me. If I can just look like him, if I could just be like him, if I could just be what he is, then that's good enough for me. Even Paul in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, beginning at verse number 1, reminds us that this house, this old body, is just an earthly tabernacle. It's just a temporary dwelling place, and because it's temporary, I know I got to leave here one day. Paul indicates unto us that we have all kind of problems in this old house. He indicates unto us that we go through some things in this old house, and the comfort of understanding the resurrection is that when this old house is gone, I got another house that I can move into. This is why Paul says, for we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved. In other words, you understand the reason why you have all of your aches and pains, the reason why you have problems with your prostate, the reason why you have kidney problems, the reason why you have problems with diabetes and high blood pressure, the reason why your colon don't act the way you want to act all the time, the reason why sometimes your liver begins to quiver, the reason why your bones get old and frail is because dust we are, and to dust we shall return. Ever since Adam and Eve transgressed in the Garden of Eden, and death introduced himself into the world of mankind, death comes in many different ways and in many different forms, and so that headache is just a reminder that this house is being dissolved. That heartache that you feel is just a reminder that this whole house is being dissolved. Whatever it is that you're suffering with medically, it's just a reminder that dust I am, and to dust I'm going to return. And that's why you've got to have your faith in him who rose from the dead. And you can't allow Easter Sunday morning to be the only time you try to have a relationship with him, because your tabernacle may be dissolved before the next time we come together. But for a child of God, That's sure enough good news. Because Paul